much more angry. Like, it doesn't look the same as it does in women. You know, people talk about depression like, oh, I don't think he's angry, he's just really pissed off. Well, that's what it looks like in men. So I think even for people with PWS, even for the girls with PWS, depression looks more like that. Angry, irritable, annoyed by others. So I would look at that. And again, they often don't see it because they're not sitting around weeping, feeling guilty about how awful they are. That's not what it looks like. It's just annoyed with others. So I'm going to talk about social skills in PWS and a new study that we have going, and a little bit about some of the success stories of people that actually, we've seen adults with PWS and kind of like what works and that kind of stuff. So I'm going to skip over a few slides and talk a little bit about it. So as far as social skills, we definitely know that they love animals. That's a young man who lost his dog and they got the puppy, and it's just like in heaven with this dog named Blue. And they love doing things like puzzles. Not everybody, but a lot of them have like repetitive things they like to do. So again, we actually find some of our social skills. We have a state organization where they actually, we have them all, the people who come for the walk or whatever else, come to do puzzles together. At those moments, they're about as happy and social as they could possibly be. So the idea that we find things that they like and enjoy is really important. People often talk about, like, I get them to do this and I get them to do that. I go, but do they really like it? I'm like, they're like, well, I don't know. But it's important. It's important for us to actually find things we like. So social skills, we try to think of things they like and try to connect them with others. So not everybody with PWS has autism. They're interested in other people, and it's not just about food. This whole idea that it's only about food is not true. People often say, they don't want friends. Yes, they do. Most people with PWS will say they want friends, they value that. A lot of our teens and adults who age out of school services are really pretty lonely. They'll often talk about how lonely they are. They want a girlfriend, they want a boyfriend, they want things to do, and that they can't have social interactions because of food. You know, we have parents who go, well, they can't do the birthday parties, and they can't do the whatever. Be creative. What if everybody comes to your house and we do, you know, play things, or we do Christmas ornaments, or like whatever you could think of. It could be an activity that's not about food, and find new ways for them to participate in dances and social things and whatever else. There are ways for them to have parts of these where there's not all about food. And even if it means that the food for the regular kids is out for like an hour, your kid doesn't show up for that hour, they put the food away, your kid comes to a dance. There's a way for them to do that. Sleepovers, dances, you just have to find a way for them to be safe. And even if they eat a little bit more food for that event, it's worth it when it comes to their social skills, because again, if you never have them participate in social activities, they will not learn social skills. As far as autism goes, about 12% of our samples have autism, the true autism diagnosis. If they have that as their diagnosis, it seems to be bigger than the PWS part. The autism features seem to kind of eclipse the PWS part. Sometimes food isn't as big a deal, sometimes other things aren't either, but they have a lot more of the kind of sensory issues and repetitive behaviors, and not as interested or motivated by other kids. Many parents find ways to have kids socialize, even with food issues. Again, is it okay for your kid to have a cupcake at a birthday party if they can actually be part of a social event? Sometimes it's worth it. So again, you keep them safe. So can they do some of the activities, most of the activities, and find people who are part of your team to keep your kid safe. You know, if you know that just one neighbor or one relative is always going to feed your kid, maybe sit down with them and really say, you know, hey, this is not helpful, and that kind of stuff. Or maybe you limit their contact with that person. But there are people who would be part of your team if you let them help you find ways for them to be social. We've been looking at social skills for almost 20 years. And again, the thing that we kept noticing is our teens and adults with PWS got older. They would often complain of being lonely, not having friends, not having things to do. This is a huge risk factor for people's psychiatric features. The people who are not doing anything are the ones who have the biggest psychiatric problems. And I don't think it's the reverse. I don't think they have psychiatric problems. They might have social events because they have psychiatric problems. It really is the opposite. So again, they need to be engaged. So there are different ways to measure social skills, parent interviews, questionnaires. The kids with PWS will often tell us they have friends. Like I'll say, you know, so tell me about your friends. Well, I've got, you know, John, and they'll literally name every kid in their classroom, and I'll ask the parents, and they'll go, he doesn't really have any friends. I go, does he get invited to things, birthday parties, sleepovers, and they'll say no. And I'll tell the parents, so what their needs are socially in school are actually classmates, peers, doing stuff kind of close to somebody else to be a friendship. They don't need the same thing that other typical kids get. But as they get older, they often find that when they get out of school and age out of school activities, there's not a lot of options for them. Again, it's hard for them to have jobs, it's hard for them to have other things that kids have, where they have social skills met. So the idea is we're trying to figure out ways to get those met. We look at, again, this idea of like the little ERP net, which actually tells us what they're interested in, what they're looking at. We did a food study where we had them look at pictures of cute baby animals and food, and it was really funny because we'd say, you know, just look at whatever you want to, and they'd be looking. And it was really funny because we'd ask them a lot about like different food things and what do you think of that? And like, no, I wouldn't eat that, not interested in that. And you put that net on and show them pictures of food, their brain's like, wow, look at that, that's awesome stuff. So it's like we really felt that they were able to tell us that they wouldn't eat things or weren't interested in things, but their brain said something completely different. Same thing with social things. If we show pictures of people and interactions at houses, we have people who are just as interested in the houses as they were with the people. I mean, it's like really interesting what they focus on. So play groups, play dates, there are all sorts of ways to get their social needs met, but you have to work to make that happen because they often don't know how to make social connections. Even in the adult groups that we have online, it's funny to watch. We'll talk about, well, you're going to invite somebody to go to a movie, and they're like, what do I say? Well, how do you get somebody to go to a movie? Like, I don't have any idea how to get anybody to go to a movie. Okay. Well, okay, we're going to model it, and then you're going to try it. So this idea that we have to actually teach them from the ground up how to do different social things. We had this really cool thing that we used for probably 10 years of little short clips of kids interacting, and sometimes they're mean to each other, sometimes they make fun of each other. It's like all the things we kind of think of. Some are nice, some are mean. We ask them, can they tell the difference in who's being mean and who's being nice? We find out they cannot often tell who's being mean and who's being nice. If I run into you on purpose, then I say, sorry. Like, oh, they were being nice. They said they're sorry. Wow. If I run into you and I go, oh, I was totally didn't mean to do that, they will often say, that person's being mean. He ran into them. Wow. So they don't often read social cues correctly. What do they notice? What do they ignore? We're using this in our social skills vignettes to watch like these clips, and we take them apart almost section by section. What did he say? What was he feeling? What was he doing? And it's really cool to watch them because when we do it in almost like slow motion, much better at doing it, and we will actually have them practice it over and over, and then we do it with real people, and then we do it with them. So that's kind of how we do it. We do it watching videos, watching the facilitators, and then they do it with each other. And they're definitely getting some real skills there. People with deletions are generally better socially. They may not be as verbal or cognitively as sharp or whatever else, but they are much better socially than a lot of our kids with UPD. So it's fascinating. Again, people with UPD can talk a good game, but what they can't do is read the cues and how to kind of know what is acceptable and what's not. So, and it's not really related to cognitive ability. Some of our folks who are the lowest functioning are better socially. We have a few kids that almost have like 5 words. They're fantastic socially. When people are around them, they're like, I mean, they have it all going on. They're fascinating, they're interested in other people, and I love it. Somebody had a conversation with one of our kids who's, again, not especially high functioning, he doesn't have a lot of words, and I said, so what did you think of, this guy? What, he was great. He was fascinated and interested in what I had to say. It's like, he's great, man. So it's like this idea that they really understand how to make a social connection, even if it's not about verbal communication. So we've used some things like cameras and control environments, kind of what do they do, what do they say, ways to capture. We even use like there's a couple of ball caps that we have that have cameras in the brim of them, so we watch what they look at, what they see, those kinds of things. And then we try to find ways to standardize interaction. We have graduate students that actually, they're college students, and that's what we say. A college student's going to call you on Skype, and you guys are going to have a conversation. So, and then we code those kind of like things for, do they initiate conversation? Do they ask questions? Do they say interesting things about themselves? What do they do? And it's really cool because they're more their age. It's really kind of fascinating to watch. Some kids are really great at it and know kind of how to interact appropriately. Other kids have no idea what to say. They just sit there and look at the camera like this. And it's really hard, and they often will say, well, I don't know what to say, so I don't say anything. Or I talk about my weird Harry Potter obsession, and that's also weird. So we're really trying to find ways to actually have something that's appropriate versus something that's not. So I tell people, we all need to be part of something bigger than ourselves. So these social groups are a way for people to connect socially with people who all have the same thing. The thing I really love about it the most, and it's something we didn't anticipate on the front end, all the people in the groups keep the first couple of sessions. So everyone else has PWS? Yes, everyone else has the same thing to go. They all have PWS? Yes, they all have PWS. And then I really love the fact that everyone's like them. And sometimes they'll even tell stories about when they've taken food or food issues. And they'll say, I wouldn't tell anyone else this because we all have PWS. They'll share things. It's really cool. And again, they don't have that ability to do that very often. This is Brandon, who's been in one of our groups. And again, he doesn't say a whole lot, but he is one of the most genuine, funny, nice, kind people. And at the end of the sessions, we have everyone say something about other group members as we say our goodbye after 30 sessions. And everybody said, Brandon doesn't say much, but he smiles all the time. And I was like, he does. And there's something about him that's so engaging. So church groups, sports groups, Girl and Boy Scouts, anything you can think of is a way to get social skills met. So don't think, well, it's weird. Everybody wants to integrate their kid, and I will say this, I actually said this at FPWR, but it's great for them to have typical friends that are, but when they get to be about middle school age, they will often be excluded by typical kids. Kids I mean, I don't dislike him, I just don't, he's not my friend. Like, they will get that they don't have anything in common. So best buddies, other kinds of things where they have kids with other disabilities. It doesn't have to be part of really, but it needs to be something where they can kind of be good at something. Whatever it is they like, they need to feel good about it instead of always feel like I'm the last one picked for kickball or I'm the last one. It's a bummer to always be the last one. Sometimes there are things they are good at, and even if it's a Harry Potter, wizarding club, who cares? As long as for that hour a week, they are the king of Harry Potter. So it's important for the people to think about kind of outside the box things. You cannot learn new skills without opportunities. If you've never had a play date for your kid, or your kid's not part of a group or organization, they will not learn social skills. You got to get out there, you got to be part of something, you got to adapt. It's not perfect, but it's this idea that you have to be part of a group so that you have to cooperate. If you're not cooperating and you're not kind of compromising, you're not going to learn social skills, because that is kind of the key of people with PWS. They need to learn to get along with others, meet expectations, do things a certain way. And they will do that in peer groups, and they won't do that if we're always, as adults, coaching them and telling them what to do. So these young ladies, there's Laurel in the pink sweatshirt, the one who's 66, who lives with these other women. They all have PWS except the 2 women on the ends who are their group home providers. But it's amazing. There's like 6 women, all with PWS, all older. Several of them have been in our social skills groups, and it is so cool to watch how they've lived together, I think 7 or 8 years together. They're just like really part of a big family. And the 2 women who run this group home know these guys so well. They get their numbers. They like totally know them, but they're so good. And they don't get stuck on a lot of things. They don't have a lot of behavior problems. And some of them have really mellowed out dramatically when it comes to some of the behavior problems as you get older. So peer modeling for younger kids and older kids. They need to have people who are like them. And again, if your kid's always with typical folks, will they learn things? Sure, but it's important at times for them to actually have people who are not as good as they are about certain things, even the kids who are lower functioning, so that your kid gets to be the cool kid, the kid who knows all sorts of things. So it's important for them to have peers that are actually like them. So again, integration's good, but sometimes it makes them very anxious because they can't always meet those expectations of typical kids. These 2 young women are actually in one of my social skills groups. I'm kind of sad because while I'm here, they're going to be finished up. And we were saying how much they've actually known each other for many years, and they're really good friends. But it's so interesting because they're very different, like in their cognitive ability and everything else. And it is so cool to watch how they've grown over the last 10 weeks. They'll even, when we get on now and they sign on, they'll say stuff like, "Hey Avery, I know you've had a bad week last week. How's it going this week?" And I'm like, did they just initiate conversation? I'm like, yeah. And she's like, well, it's been pretty bad, Amy. And Amy will go, I know. She's like, what do I say next? And it's like, I'm sorry to hear that, Avery. I'm like, so I think that we're really teaching these guys some social skills. And again, we're kind of curious whether they're going to generalize because we're having people go out in the community and we're asking parents how they are. But what I will say is it's so cool to watch them in these groups because it is a peer group that is people all have the same thing. We get a really good chance to bond with them and to be really honest with them. So when they say things, I had a young man with PWS who I really adore, but he is really kind of hell on wheels, and he was telling somebody, they actually get to run 2 of their own sessions together and get to do their own sessions, so we watch them. And he's so funny. We're talking about hopes and dreams because they're all the young adults with PWS, and Daniel says, well, I'm going to be really honest with you guys. I want a wife, and have kids and stuff, and I don't want her to have Prader-Willi because, my kids won't be normal. And I was listening to this letter going, did he just say that? And there are 3 young women with PWS, and they're like, well, that's not true. He goes, I don't know what your parents have told you, but they've lied to you. And he is just like the voice of authority, and he's going on, and I watched the video later, and then we get to give them feedback, and it's almost at the very end, so it's great. And I said, Daniel, you said that, you didn't want to marry anybody who wasn't typical because, you wouldn't have normal kids or whatever. And he said, he goes, yeah. I go, everyone in this group has Prader-Willi syndrome. How would you feel if one of the young ladies said they didn't want to marry a man with PWS because they wouldn't have normal kids? Well, I wouldn't like that. I said, right, so can you imagine how they feel? And he goes, probably pretty bad. Well, what do you think you might want to say? I'm really sorry. His mom even said, she goes, you got Daniel to say he's sorry? I go, I did, it was pretty cool. So it's this idea that with the right guidance and trust, they're able to admit things. And even he said, he goes, I get what you're saying. So we actually have gotten them to say things that they would have never said, I don't think, had they not been part of this group. So again, adults with PWS are part of a bigger family and community. It's important for them to have extended family, for people to kind of know them and to get them. And again, what do they need to kind of best meet their needs? It's like this idea, every person's different. One size doesn't fit all. Not everybody needs to live in a group home. Not everybody needs to live with other people with PWS. You need to figure out what works for your kid. And this idea is that everyone's a unique individual. This young lady with PWS here with a kind of pink flowery t-shirt is part of a big family. She was in a PWS group home. It didn't work out very well for her. She's back home now. And now she lives with, I think, 3 other women. 2 have Down syndrome and 1 has something else. And she's doing fantastically well in that setting. So again, find what works. She is a queen bee. She loves being in charge of everything. And so she is with those other women. They just look up to her. So again, figure out what works. School, family, sports, activities, volunteer activities. People often want a job. If we talk about volunteer activities, might be another option for them. I have a lot of people who work at animal shelters, work with young kids. I have 2 guys that work with older people in a retirement community. We have to be really careful they don't steal the pudding or whatever else because they're too old to notice it. But they're really good because they really like older people. So again, there's all sorts of things that we can do that, but we have to think about being engaged, because if you're not part of a bigger community, you're going to find that you focus too much on yourself. And that's true of us too, right? If we are always focused on ourselves, we can't really be as healthy as we were when we're focused on other people. So take strengths and turn them into skills. The same young lady who likes to ride horses now teaches people with PWS horseback riding skills. So again, focus on the right things, work on social skills from their perspective, and break down things into small parts. They don't learn like other kids learn. Like if we see our typical kids, they watch what other kids do socially, they go, okay, I see that, I'm going to do that. Kids with PWS don't do it. We literally have to break it down. Like I said, when we do it frame by frame, it's similar like going, oh, I get it now. I'm like, wow, finally. It's like we literally have to walk them through it over and over. They don't generalize as well. We have to model and practice. We have to practice a lot. And every time that we leave our sessions, they have homework to do, and then the next session we'll say, so who did their homework? And then they're always that kind of look like, I'm going to call on you, know that's going to happen, so you better be doing your homework. And again, practicing those skills at home. Nurturing and caring. They are some of the kindest, most nurturing people. They really enjoy babies, small animals. They're really helpful people. Again, they really like to kind of help people. What they don't like is the fact that so much of their life is controlled by food issues and people telling them what to do. So the idea is, can we let them be helpful in a way we don't have to deal with food issues? They're really in tune to the stress of other people. We watch people be upset. The girl I work with, Haley, we've known each other forever, and so we have these pretend fights, and most of them know us, and they get really upset. They're like, so did Haley really say that to you, Elizabeth? And it's like, it's all made up. But they get really upset if they think that we're mad. And so at the end of every little fight vignette, we have to kind of go, I'm really sorry I said that, Haley, that was not very nice, and she apologizes to me, and we're all going to be hug it out. And it's interesting to watch how they do get upset when people are upset with each other, and you probably find that within your families. If you're arguing with another kid or a spouse, your kid with PWS, their satellite dishes all start to rotate. So I always tell people, if you're talking about them and you want them to hear it, whisper it, be in another county, do it. They're literally like, if you are talking to them directly and you're using your normal loud voice, it's like there's nobody home. But if you're talking about them, and I always do that. If I want them to hear something I'm saying, I'm like, they're like, I heard you say that. I'm like, oh yeah. So they're really good at that. So again, use what is a strength for them. They're very compassionate towards other people. Again, people focus on the negative parts, but there is a part of them that is incredibly kind. They're some of the most honest people. I love the fact, I had a young man with PWS. My dad had cancer many years ago, and he knew that when he was here. And every single time I saw him after that, he'd go, Elizabeth, how's your dad? You know, Randy, he's doing great. I really appreciate you thinking about him. He said, I pray for him every night. For 10 years, he prayed for my dad, which was like the sweetest thing ever. And his parents were telling me later about the story about people kept calling their house. Strangers kept calling their house. And they would say, can I speak to Randy? I'm like, hold on. And they would walk it in, and Randy would like go, hello. And he'd start talking to them, and their parents are just like, and he's like, and he would take the phone into the closet, and he would just be talking on the phone, sometimes 10, 15 minutes. And his parents were like, what is going on here? And so anyway, they were talking, somebody in their church or somebody that they knew ended up telling them. They said, oh, you didn't know? We call Randy when we need somebody to pray for us. We know he's got a special connection to God. And I was like, wow, who knew? And we asked him to pray for us. And I was like, what a cool thing. And Randy didn't want to make them feel embarrassed by telling his parents about him or whatever else. And he really was so in tune to other people's kind of needs. And again, this guy has an IQ that's like 40. He doesn't read any letters. He's older. He's never learned to read. And his parents said he would come into church, and if a woman had recently lost a husband, he would walk right past his parents' pew and go sit next to that older woman and put his arm around her, and he goes, I'm here as long as you need me. You should not be alone. And I was like, and it wasn't even like a come on move. I mean, it was really impressive, and it was really, really sweet. So again, he was really he's one of the kindest people I know. And even as a, I think, 41-year-old man, you know, people have told him that his parents said he wasn't smart enough to ever learn to read. He could never learn to read. He was just too low functioning, blah, blah. His parents hired an old elementary teacher to teach him to read. And one day he calls me at like 42, and he reads me a book over the phone. And literally, I had tears in my eyes because he could learn to read. You just had to teach him. And they literally did those kinds of things. So again, they have a real kindness to them if you see it, and you kind of, like I said, nurture those things. They're not perfect. You know, like I said, for Randy, it's like he had a lot of things going for him. It didn't mean he wasn't stealing food left and right when he had the opportunity, but he really was a kind soul. And again, when they sometimes have pets, they tend to overfeed them and overhandle them. So just know that your, cute little dachshund may weigh like 300 pounds. If I can't eat it, somebody should be able to eat that food. So again, they love animals. This is Shawn, and she has PWS, and she lives in a group home and is doing incredibly well. Has a job full-time. She works as a maid in a hotel. Trust me, somebody has to sweep the floor to make sure there are absolutely no food, no trays, no whatever. She puts on sheets. She does whatever. She's got a job. She is doing incredibly well. We also have a few people who've learned to be vet techs because they've taken like an online skills class. They love animals. If we can find a way for them not to eat dog food at their placement or whatever else, and they're not eating employees' lunches, they can also do really, really well. So again, use accredited curriculum to teach people. A lot of the programs that work for people with ASD also work for people with PWS. Megan is one of our people that we saw. She was really poorly in school. She was having meltdowns, just kind of over and over. And her parents said, we're just really concerned. She's a senior in high school. They can't take her out into vocational training because she's just falling apart. And so when I ended up having a conversation with her, she said, I really want to work at PetSmart. I said, well, Megan, you can imagine that they can't hire you at PetSmart when you're swinging at your teacher and you're screaming, send a decent curse words at her. And she's like, I said, so if you can keep it together at school, I will talk to some people at PetSmart and see if I can get you a job. So she ended up training there. She got a job. She is like employee of the month. She is fantastic. Sometimes she's a little weird with customers when she knows weird things about animals. They're like, I don't think that's true. No. The goldfish are incredibly aggressive, and I've seen it myself. And I just tell people, I said, sometimes they get a little stuck on things, but it's this idea that, she's found a job that works for her. So again, they can do amazing things if we find opportunities for them to do that. It doesn't mean that our parents don't have to, every time a new person comes on staff, well, Megan asked me for my, cookies for my lunch, and I felt that was a nice thing to do. So they have to constantly be retraining and supporting and whatever else. And for a lot of our folks, we weigh them. If they weigh over a certain amount, you got to give them a reasonable amount. It can't be like, supermodel weight. But it should be something that's normal. If they get over that, then they have to cut back. Maybe they start bringing their lunch, or maybe they work fewer hours. You can find ways to make that work. And we find, I have a young man 36 now. He's married with Prader-Willi syndrome. He drives a car. He works for his parents' insurance agency. And every time Joe gets over 300 pounds, which I know sounds like a lot, and it is, but he is incredibly independent, that he loses the keys to his car. It doesn't mean he can't find them. It means he can't drive anymore because his parents found him at least once or twice sitting in the Sonic drive-thru going, oh, I don't know how I ended up here. It's amazing. So again, you know, if his weight, and so he knows that. So we find things that work. So you can do some pretty creative things, but you have to kind of figure out what they like and what they're willing to do, because he is willing to actually forego food if it means he can keep his car, his job, those kinds of things. So again, doesn't mean they won't make slip-ups, because they will, but it means that you kind of figure out what the balance is of benefits versus risk. Can we teach social skills? We definitely think we can. Patrick is in the middle. He's in one of our social skills group. He's really funny. He said, Elizabeth, I don't need social skills group. I'm doing great. Awesome. The parents seem to think you do, but okay, we'll pretend. And I said, well, you know, Patrick, I said, really what I need you for is I need somebody who really has great social skills to be part of the group. Oh, well, I could do that. I said, great. So, you know, he's learned a lot of social skills, so he didn't think he needed any. He's apparently perfect. And it's been really good for him. And it's been really good for the other people in the group. Because yes, he has some great social skills, but yes, he has some restricted interest. And sometimes when he gets stuck on a topic, the facilitator will go, Patrick, okay, you can only talk 2 times before they get to talk. And he's like, oh, okay. So he often gets stuck on conversations of the things he's interested in. So again, we're trying to find ways for them to be part of a group. And because it's online, anybody can participate. They don't have to be local, which is really cool. So it's really funny because some of our folks who are people that we know will often forget that people aren't there. They'll talk about some activity that's going on, and the other kids will go, what are you talking about? And they're like, oh, you know, so-and-so. And they're like, I live in California. I don't know what you're talking about. And all students go, it's really important to realize that not everybody has the same experience as you. So we're really trying to figure out what they need to learn and how to teach them those things. This is kind of what it looks like Brady Bunch tiles. We show pictures of different faces. We talk about how to like make those faces. They're really amazing. We'll often say, make a happy face. And here's their face. So we'll work on that, and we'll talk about how that feels when your muscles move a certain way, when you have a sad face, when you have an angry face. And we'll have to do this. This young lady at the KU's in the top corner has really poor eye contact. She has a little autism kind of features, and she couldn't look at people. And I said, it makes it really hard to tell how people are feeling when you can't look at their face. And she's like, I know, I found it really hard. I'm like, so we worked on that for the whole time. And it was so cute because towards the end of our 30 sessions, she would sign on about 2 or 3 minutes early so she would get a little FaceTime with Haley and I and talk to us. And by the end, I mean, it was really cute because she was working so hard, she would literally go, the camera. It's like, so we worked on, you know, eye contact, don't interrupt. We had our ABCs of communication, always be clear and direct, compromise and problem solve, you know, be calm and polite, don't interrupt, eye contact. And she was so cute. Those kids would be like, I have done all of the 5 communication skills. So it was really great. But again, we just like to practice those things. So Kyle, who's this guy at the Silly Fan, would often forget that we could see him, so he'd be rolling around in his chair in the room and be like, hey Kyle, you know we can see everything you're doing. And he'd be like, oh, yeah, you know, whatever. So again, it was really cool for them to realize that when you're part of a group, you got to compromise. And I'd often, you know, like I said, I could call him out and embarrass him, but what I didn't want to say is like, Kyle, you're giving me a headache. I don't know what you're doing, but your camera is going around and around. Do I know that Kyle's doing it? Sure. But I can pretend that it's just his phone, just magically going around in circles. So again, it was really cool to watch everybody be part of the group. And I loved the last activity, which was for everyone to say something good about other people in the group. Some of the stuff they said was so honest, so true, and so kind. It was just really cool to watch. And again, and now we're doing check-in sessions and booster sessions because people were so sad we didn't think about when it ends. They're kind of devastated. They've now had a new group of friends, and we didn't think about that. So when you're now doing check-in sessions where they come up once every couple of weeks and talk to people in the group, and it's really cool to watch them actually kind of facilitate social conversations, ask people to things. We ask them to ask people to things, and we have other people say no to them. Like I said, no, I don't want to go. What do you do with that? So we talk about how to navigate. What do you do? So you say, oh, is it a scheduling conflict? Do you want to do it another day? So we talk about problem solving, how to compromise, and how to manage emotions. Because when you're feeling things really strongly, it's sometimes hard to feel how other people are feeling because our emotions are just so big. So we talk about those things. I laugh because Haley and I, we like wrote the curriculum. We'll often say to each other, Haley, when you're having big feelings, it makes it really hard to know how other people are feeling. She's like, Okay, I'm not in boss right now, so don't do that to me. So again, there are things that work for anybody. So we talk about how to be relaxed but alert, eye contact, what do you look, how do you feel, look at the lower part of the mouth. We actually cover parts of faces so they can see different things. How to actually read the most important information. We talk about what time did you feel that way. We ask them like, have you ever been angry? Someone will say, no. Wow, that's weird because I've been angry. And we'll tell a story. And sometimes when enough people tell a story, then somebody will say, well, there was this one time. Great. So we want them to share things that have happened. We want them to talk about when people feel that way, what kinds of things do they feel, and what does that mean. An idea of like practice and praise. We constantly praise them. Sometimes they say the weirdest things, and we'll just go, well, it's something like that, except it's more like, totally opposite thing. And, but yeah, that's like you're on the right track. So we try really hard to praise them. Because again, it's hard for them to actually figure out some of these things. They've never had to do them. So we talk about listening well, searching for clues, tones of voices, things like that. The idea of listening and responding to comments. We have one guy who always would say the oddest thing. Somebody would say, how are you doing? So what do you say to him? How are you doing? And go, no, that's what he asked you. Why would you say the same thing? What would make more sense? And then we'd let the peanut gallery go around and they would all give one thing that he could say. So he learned to actually parrot them, and eventually he learned to actually do some of those things himself. So we talk a lot about it's like throwing a ball. I say something, you say something. You keep throwing it back and forth, and it is so cool to watch how they get faster and better at that. The first few conversations are so painful, and watching them just like, oh my God. Like they would, and some of them were pretty good at it, but again, if you mess up, try again. We tried to do some rote conversations, like good conversation starters, good responses to say, so that they have some skills, and then we try to get them to get the hang of it, to get faster, and to keep getting better. And we do a lot more of this kind of like back and forth with us than with each other, and then we do more and more of like feedback. We tell them that works, that doesn't work. Can you think of another thing you could say there? So they're always thinking about what they're saying and how that sounds and how it feels when somebody says that to them. Because so often, they don't like what people say to them. It can be really negative. And so we try to talk about how to frame that in a positive way. And again, it is so cool to actually be able to be really honest with them and for them to go, oh, yeah, I can see that. We had a young lady who, she's really high functioning, but she lost her job, and she spent 2 sessions just crying. She was just like, and because she was silent crier, it didn't keep showing her picture, which was good. But I realized we weren't going to get any further because she just was so upset about this. And I finally said, okay, I'm just going to like stop here. Kayla's really upset because she lost her job. What can everyone think of to say to her to make her feel better? And Kayla goes, this wasn't part of the curriculum. I go, I know. We're going out on a limb here. So the first person came up with something that was kind of lame. By the last person, they said, Kayla, you're really smart and you really love animals, and I know you're going to get another job working with animals and you're going to get to do the thing you love. And I was just so proud of her because that was such a perfect thing to say to her. I said, Kayla, what do you think about all the things people said? She goes, it's okay. Well, we're going to move on. So it's like this idea that, and again, we talked about this idea that we want them to figure out when people are distressed, what do you say? And if you ask somebody, do you want to talk about it, and they say no, what do you say next? Like, it's like if somebody's upset and they go, I don't want to talk about it, what do you say? Like, how do you make them feel better? And they learn to say stuff like, well, I'm really sorry you're having a hard day, or I'm sorry that somebody was mean to you. I hope that your day gets better. So again, modeling those things was huge because they start to learn skills about how to do that. Handling conflicts, focusing on emotions, but then trying to turn the situation and putting yourself in someone else's shoes. They really suck at putting themselves in somebody else's shoes. They just kind of go, I don't know how they feel because I'm not them. And I'm like, right, but when that happens to you, how do you feel? So we literally work so hard on that kinds of things, talking it out, how to make a point, how to listen to other people. They often are so busy thinking about the next thing they're going to say that they can't really listen to other people. Forgive and forget. And then we practice. And again, we ask them to go out and have conversations with classmates or friends or people at work or even their parents. But anything we can do so we can work on those skills. So ways to connect. What do you like to do? What do you think is fun? What would other people think are fun? If they tell you, well, I don't like movies, I only do this, what can you say to that? We actually had a conversation about music recently. It's funny because our folks like some very different kinds of music. And one of them liked some kind of music that he kept talking about. I said, you get that you like bluegrass, but nobody else in this group does. So what could you say to get them connected? And he was like, I can't think of anything. And I said, well, could you ask them, what is bluegrass similar to? Do you also like country music? And he was like, oh, I guess I could ask that. So we really try to help them think of other ways to get not stuck in a corner. So again, some of the things that we've done, we've already finished recruiting, so I'm not recruiting anybody else, I'm sad to say, but we're actually hoping that once we get this curriculum finalized and we get our data collected by the end of the year, that we'll actually have this program available for people to actually get and to teach social skills. It would be great for teachers. It's not really geared for people who are like younger kids, but 13 and up seems to be a good age where people start to understand how other people are feeling and really, really want to connect with others. But we think the idea of doing this online is a really cool thing to do because, again, it gives us a way to connect with other people where we don't have to be physically there. And again, it's this idea of checking in with the group so they can find out how people are doing. This young lady's a really amazing young lady, but she's somebody that I've known for a long time, but she graduated from high school. She's actually working full-time now with PWS. And again, it's this idea that with her parents' help, if they asked every friend that they knew to get this girl a job, and she tried a lot of things out before she kind of crashed and burned, but she now found something she really likes doing with animals at their local animal shelter. Walks the dog. They call her the dog whisperer, which I think is really cute, but she's really awesome with animals. And again, she's found something that she really enjoys doing. So don't think that because your kid has Prader-Willi, they can't have a full life. It may not be your life, and it won't be the plan you have for them. But this idea is that for a lot of people, they can actually have some really cool things if we find a way to kind of maximize their social skills and to maximize what they like doing. So one thing we have found is that people are initiating more conversations with others. The other thing that we found is that they're becoming much more socially flexible than other folks. They're really learning how to work with others, what they're willing to live with, coping strategies, how to calm and soothe themselves when they're upset, and then able to put themselves in somebody else's shoes. They're able to do those things. And again, working with people all with the same disability is really cool. They're actually sharing and being so real in a way that, I mean, honestly, I never expected, and I love when they'll tell things that are so personal. And so, one guy was talking about being made fun of at his job because he has Prader-Willi and he'd eaten something out of the trash can, and he said one of his supervisors was laughing at him, and I was just like, you know, in my little head boiling over, and it was so cute. One of the other girls in the group said, well, that's horrible. That man should be ashamed of himself. You have Prader-Willi syndrome. And he goes, I know, right? And we were like talking about it, and I said, so, you know, I said, it's really important that we understand that not everybody understands us, that they don't get it. And he was like, yeah. But I love the fact that she totally got where he was coming from and really was supportive. So that's the part that I think is the coolest, that they get empathy from other people because everybody has some of the same issues. They may not be exactly the same, but they have a lot of the same issues. We're again doing some kind of check-in sessions. Now we're going to have a parent part where parents can check in with each other because a lot of the parents really wanted to know, how do I, help model these behaviors? How do I help do these things at home? So we're actually doing some things there. We actually have a little Skype thing, and we also have a little workbook that goes along with the curriculum. There's something we use called firefighter and fire starter because we talk about how to make the situation hotter, which people would probably often do, versus how to make things cooler and calmer. And so we talked about those things. And what was cool is one of our parents goes, so are you teaching my kid how to start fires? No. I said, it's just a word we use because they understand that. But she was really funny. She was like, well, he kept saying, I don't want to be a fire starter. And she's like, please don't be a fire starter. I said, no. I said, it's just something we use, and they get it. And I love the fact that a lot of our kids would use their terms when they were out with their parents, or things would happen. They go, I need to use my 3 deep breaths to calm down. It's like, that's really cool. One guy goes, I kept doing it. It wasn't working, Elizabeth. I go, sometimes you got to do it a few times, and sometimes you got to maybe walk away from the situation. He was like, yeah, I didn't do that. I go, yeah, that always happens. Everybody needs a friend with Prader-Willi. If you have Prader-Willi syndrome, you still need friends. So this idea that somehow they don't need that, they all want that. And a lot of our folks say, I want a boyfriend, I want a girlfriend, I want friends. Find a way to make that happen. Whatever it takes, it's really, really important that they have friends that they can actually be friends with, they can know. And everybody wants to be known and accepted for just where they are. And again, that's the thing that we like about this group is we can do that. I get them. And we're teaching our graduate students, their special ed students, to actually do that. And one of them said, what was so cool is, as cool as this was, it's helped me be a better teacher for people who don't have Prader-Willi syndrome. Because they were so honest with us. I said, I know, right? She said, it's been so cool to see that. And I realized that even though I'm teaching kids that are this big, one day they're going to be this big. And they have the same needs and wants as everybody else. And that it's so important to kind of understand them. So again, I think we're really teaching a lot of even special ed teachers to really think about these people as they grow up. You have a huge, ability to be a good influence if you get them, and again, that's really what they're all looking for. They even said, I just want somebody to like me. I think that's what we all want. So again, John Ross is one of my growth hormone horror stories. His endocrinologist put him on like, I don't know, 4 or 5 milligrams of growth hormone, and he's like literally 6'5" with Prader-Willi syndrome, and it's just like, oh my God, what were they thinking? He's like, I don't know. I mean, he was saying that, we always say that yes, he has Prader-Willi syndrome, and yes, he's one of the few people that literally hovers above me. So, but he's one of the sweetest guys, and he was actually in our social skills group, and is so great. He has very few words. He's very high functioning, but he has a really hard time with some of his with speech apraxia. But he is so great, and like several people said, he's just the best listener. I said, I know, right? So he has learned some excellent social skills, and actually John Ross is in college now, looking at funeral science, of all things, and wants to actually work at a funeral home. He is one of the kindest people, but he even said, I said, why do you want to be a funeral director? He goes, I really give great hugs. And I go, there you go. So I think you'll make a good one.